Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Mindy Mandell, and in this video I'm going to go through one of Plotinus's Enneads. Now I thought about doing this because I was thinking about my teacher, Pierre Grimes, who passed away recently, and he really loved Plotinus. Plotinus was one of his favorite Platonic philosophers. And the Ennead I'm going to look at today is one that he often spoke very highly of. Before I jump into the text, though, I do want to say a few words about Plotinus himself. He was known to modern academics as the father of Neoplatonism, and he's believed to have lived from 204 AD to 270 AD, so we're looking at some 500 years after Plato. The only writings that Plotinus has left us were all written towards the end of his life. And he only wrote them because some of his students urged him to do so, to write something down. So we've got 54 essays. And one of his students, Porphyry, grouped them into 6 bundles of 9 essays each. And this is why they're called the Enneads, because the word Ennead in Greek means a group of 9. In this video, I am going to be drawing from the Elmer O'Brien translation. And the essay I'm going to focus on is the second essay in the 5th bundle, or Ennead. So this one is called Post-Primals in the Elmer O'Brien translation, and it focuses on what follows from the one. Now, because it is short, I'm going to present it in whole rather than pulling out key passages. This essay has only 2 sections in it. The first section outlines the procession of principles after the one. The one is everything and not everything. It is not everything because it is the source of everything. It is, transcendently, everything because there everything is. Or, more exactly, is not yet, but is to be. Yet how can everything come from the one, which is simple and apparently has within it no multiplicity or duality whatsoever? Everything can come from it precisely because there is no thing in it. In order that being be, the one must be not being, but being's begetter. This is a key line right here. And this is key in understanding Plotinus and actually all of the Platonists, I would say. There are some other mystic traditions that go no higher than being. But Plotinus is saying here that even being must have a cause. Anything that exists must have a cause. But when we're talking about the cause of being, that cause cannot technically be. It cannot exist. And so it is prior, metaphysically prior to existence. And yet, being the cause or the condition for being, we can't say that it's nothing at all. And so we're kind of stuck. We can't really say that much about it. But that's what he is trying to express here. He's trying to express that which cannot be expressed. So everything comes from it precisely because there is no thing in it. In order that being be, the one must be not being, but its being's begetter. Okay, this then, it may be said, is the primal begetting. It is perfect, seeking nothing, having nothing, needing nothing. The one overflows, and its excess begets another than itself. Begotten turns back towards begetter and is filled and becomes its contemplator, the intelligence. Okay, now there's a whole lot right here, so I'm going to pause again. And I want to point out here that the word overflow has to be taken in a metaphorical sense, because if we're talking about that which has no thing in it, which actually doesn't even have, it doesn't have a limitation or a boundary to hold anything in it. And so it is infinite, so how can it overflow? So it raises, it's a real problem if you were to take it literally, put it that way. So the word overflow has to be taken metaphorically. And we can say this, or Plotinus can say this, because somehow there is more than just the one. We're here. Being exists. And so there was something that he would metaphorically call an overflow. So this is his way of describing it. So he's not going into the mechanics. We don't know how it happens. It's some mysterious way, some divine way that we don't understand, but we can say there must be something like this, something that he can at least metaphorically describe as an overflow. And then what he also shows here is that the begotten turns back towards the begetter, and it's filled, and it becomes its contemplator, the intelligence. So the excess begets another. So you've got already three rankings here. You've got the one, you've got being, and now we have the intelligence, which is begotten from being, that excess, and it turns back to know itself. Okay, so now we have three levels, but now he's going to take it even further. Its abiding with the one constitutes it being, but its contemplating the one constitutes its being intelligence. Because it abides with the one in order to see, it becomes, at one and the same time, intelligence and being. So now he just went from 3 levels to 2, and he put those two together in a very clever way. He's saying that this intelligence that turns back to know itself, it's abiding with being and with the one. There is no differentiation at this point. We're making distinctions, calling them one, being, and intelligence, but they're not yet differentiated. So they're all together. It abides with the one, and it does so in order to see. Okay, so its existence makes it being, but it's turning on itself to know itself. It's abiding with itself for the purpose of knowing itself, means that it is both being and intelligence. And so this is why the historical Parmenides famously said that to think is to be. Image of the one, the intelligence produces, as does the one, with, like its prior, a mighty show of strength. This activity is the soul welling up from being, the intelligence the while remaining unchanged, quite as its prior, the one, remained unchanged. So we're getting the unfolding hierarchy. Soul is the activity of the intellect, which again is the overflow from the one. But the soul does not remain unchanged in begetting its image, but it is altered. Contemplating its source, it is filled and it goes out, a motion different in kind and in direction. And it begets its own image, sense, and the vegetal principle, nature. So the hierarchy is unfolding even further still. However, nothing is separated from what is prior. And that is a key principle, by the way, in Platonic metaphysics. Nothing is separated from what is prior. The soul's going out seems to extend even to the vegetal level. In one sense, it does extend that far, for the life of growing things is its province. But it does not go out wholly onto the level of vegetation. It is there solely in the sense that, in going so low by this abasement and desire for what is base, it is the producer of an existent other. Its higher part, its own intelligence, and to the intelligence it's akin, continues in untroubled self-possession. And so the realm of nature, although it is infused into the living things that are its province, also, in a sense, remains transcendent above them. And this brings us to the second part of the essay, which focuses on the soul. Such then is the procession from the first principle to the last, with each principle in its own place, begotten position below begetter, and each, as guided, one with its guide. And so that's a nice description, a nice summary of the basic unfolding, the basic flow of realms in this Platonic hierarchy. When the soul enters a vegetal form, only a part, the most rebellious and least intellectual, is there, since it has gone so far out of itself. When it enters an animal, it is sensation that has taken charge and conducted it there. When it enters a man or a woman, its outgoing has been due entirely either to its reasoning part or to intelligence, insofar as the soul has an intelligence of its own, and therefore the desire to know or be moved more generally. So you might say that the lower the soul extends downward, the less it participates in intellect. When one clips shoots or branch ends, where does the soul go that was in them? It returns to where it came from. There is no spatial separation. Soul abides in its source. In other words, soul is not just in your finger or in the shoots or a branch of a tree, for example. It's in the whole, it's not broken up into the parts of the body. But cut a root to pieces or burn it. Where then is the soul that was in the root? Ah, it's in the soul. The soul never left the soul for someplace else. In the same place, it must have been in someplace else, since, as we said, it returns. Okay, a little confusing, but he'll say more. And if it does not return, it is in another plant. Our meaning here is merely that the soul is not compressed into some one place. If the soul returns, it returns within the power of its prior. And where is this power? Within the power of its prior. And this last is within the intelligence. Of course, none of this is to be understood spatially, particularly in regard to the intelligence, but in regard to the soul as well. The soul, then, is nowhere. It is in a where that is nowhere and everywhere. Still, if it tarry midway in its ascent, it leads a middling existence centered upon the mediocre in itself. And I think this is a shot at people who do not pursue philosophy. You will lead a mediocre existence because you're tarrying midway in your ascent up. You're not doing philosophy properly. Thus are all these things the one, and yet not the one. They are the one because the one abides within itself in giving them existence. All things accordingly are like a life that extends in a straight line. Each successive part differs, but the line is of a piece with itself. It has points without end that are different, but previous point is not effaced by subsequent point. And so he's giving us the image of many incarnations or manifestations that all extend from the one. Now, we relate strongly to differentiation, and we see difference all around us. It's easy for us to look around and see the not one. What is harder to see is that while distinction occurs, all is still the one. That portion of the soul that arrives in plants, does it in turn engender nothing? It engenders the plant in which it resides. But to examine this question, it is necessary to start from another principle. And then it ends rather abruptly here. So this essay would take you to Ennead 4:8, and that is on the descent of the soul into bodies. And I actually do have a video on that, so I'll link it at the end. The final realm following that of nature would be the realm of materiality. And so here in this short essay, Plotinus outlined the unfolding of the realms of reality from that first begetting, that of that overflow of being itself and its knowledge of itself as the intelligence. Well, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on Plotinus and on this essay. And if you did watch the video this far, I would appreciate you hitting the like button. And thank you very much, and till next time.